night. Action and motivation.
The gentleman who asked the question about death, he asked if we could have it this morning because he's leaving tonight.
No.
Okay.
You must stay over tonight.
Du må blive i aften, så.
Action and motivation. I wouldn't like to change the entire schedule. You understand that?
Handling og dens motivation. Jeg har ikke så meget lyst til at ændre programmet.
Good. Now, what constitutes action? What we normally interpret by action is that which is done with the limbs of one's body or the organs of one's body.
Det vi normalt forstår ved handling, er det vi foretager os med vores lemmer eller vores organer her i kroppen.
But yet, all the actions of one's limbs are necessarily emanated from thought, and thought is subtle action.
Men alle kroppens handlinger kommer fra tanken, som er finere handlinger.
Now, thought is a thing, and it is even more powerful than physical action.
Tanker er ting, og de er kraftigere end fysiske handlinger.
For the intenser the thought, the greater the impression it leaves on the mind.
Jo større tanken er, eller mere intens tanken er, jo større er indtrykket i sindet.
And these thoughts that leave impressions on the mind are called sanskaras.
Og de tanker, som efterlader indtryk i sindet, kalder vi samskaras.
Now, these sanskaras is what the mind is formed of.
Disse samskarer, det er det, hvad sindet består af.
This means that the mind is nothing else but a bundle of impressions.
Det betyder, at sindet er ikke andet end en samling indtryk.
And from time to time, these impressions has to find expression.
Og de indtryk må finde udtryk af og til.
And the reason why it has to find expression is to rid itself.
Og grunden til, at de må finde udtryk er, at de må fjerne sig selv.
And this is what evolution is all about.
Og det er det, som udvikling egentlig er.
That is why in the scriptures we find them saying that you come to this earth with a burden.
Og det er derfor, at der står i skrifterne, at man kommer her til jorden med en byrde.
And the duty in life is to reduce the burden.
Og vores pligt er så her i livet at lette den byrde.
So reducing the burden means reducing the impressions.
Så at lette byrden betyder at formindske indtrykkene.
But most actions of people today are such that instead of reducing the burden, they increase the burden.
Men de fleste menneskers handlinger i dag er sådan, at de forøger indtrykkene i stedet for at formindske dem.
So, the day when you leave this earth, and you can truly say to yourself that I've reduced the burden I brought with me, you have lived a good life.
Så den dag, når du forlader den her jord, og du så kan sige, at du har reduceret mængden af indtryk eller byrden, du har, så kan du virkelig sige, at du har levet et godt liv.
And the other side of the coin would be that if you have increased the burden, then your life has not been so good.
Og på den anden side, hvis du har forøget byrden, har du ikke levet så godt.
Good. So, as we said, that the actions of man in ordinary living is an expression of these impressions for the purpose of reducing them.
Så som vi har sagt, så er menneskets handlinger udtryk for disse indtryk for at formindske dem.
Now, actions are not necessarily only physical actions.
Handlinger er ikke kun nødvendigvis fysiske handlinger.
But there's still a subtler level which is called a dream action.
Men der er også et finere plan, som vi kalder drømmehandlinger.
Many people here have had nightmares, for example.
Mange her har for eksempel haft mareridt.
And I do wish you have more nightmares.
Jeg vil ønske, I ville have flere af dem.
Good. Now, the very dream, be it a good dream or frightening dream, a frightening dream is called a nightmare.
Drømmene, og det vil være både gode og dårlige. De dårlige kalder vi mareridt.
Good. Now, what happens there is that in that dream, various experiences from various lifetimes get together in like a kaleidoscope.
Det, der sker er, i den drøm, at en masse indtryk fra forskellige tidspunkter finder sammen, ligesom tingene i et kaleidoskop.
Yeah. And these various bits of impressions from various lifetimes form together to form a story.
Og alle de her små bidder af indtryk fra forskellige liv, de kommer sammen og laver en historie.
And the story could be triggered off by some happening during the day or in the past few weeks.
Og den historie kunne blive udløst på grund af noget, der er sket i den sidste tid.
Or just by someone's word or whatever the reason.
Et ord, vi hører, hvad som helst.
But it gets triggered off.
Ja, den bliver udløst.
Now, this is a very valuable gift that divinity has given us.
Det er en meget stor gave, som det guddommelige har givet os.
So that we find a release of sanskaras or impressions in dream form.
Sådan at vi kan løsne samskaras eller indtryk i drømme.
So, if a person had to live those nightmares in daily waking practical life, his life would become totally miserable and he would become insane.
Hvis en person skulle gennemleve de mareridt i den vågne tilstand, ville han blive vanvittig og være meget ulykkelig.
So it is a good thing to dream.
Så det er godt at drømme.
All right. Science has proved today that you could deprive a person of sleep, but not of his dreams, because that will lead to insanity.
Videnskaben har vist, at man kan forhindre et menneske i at sove, men hvis man forhindrer det i at drømme, bliver folk skøre.
Now, there are methods where you have the RPM sleep, where dreams could be measured.
Der er, excuse me once again.
Rapid eye movement, REM.
Der er REM-faser af søvnen.
Now, through these various methods, scientists could observe that at this moment the person is dreaming.
Og man kan måle på forskellige måder, at mennesket drømmer i de faser, man kalder REM-faser.
And by constantly interrupting those dreams and waking the person up,
Og ved hele tiden, at når man opdager, at vedkommende drømmer, så vækker vedkommende.
they found that the person could become insane.
Så har man fundet, at personen kan blive skør.
So, to release these impressions, dreams are necessary,
Så for at løsne disse indtryk er drømme nødvendige.
be they night dreams or day dreams.
Lige meget om det er nattedrømme eller dagdrømme.
Waking action is necessary,
Vågne handlinger er også nødvendige.
and the final level of thought is necessary.
Og de finere planer af tanken er nødvendige.
Now, this is the normal way of life of ordinary people.
Og det er den helt almindelige måde at leve på.
But sometimes actions or thoughts become distorted because one's own mental makeup and environment
Men nogle gange bliver ens tanker og handlinger forstyrret på grund af ens egne tilstand og omgivelsernes påvirkning.
and that adds on to sanskaras.
Og det forøger mængden af samskaras.
But what is the position of a man, say an enlightened man,
Men hvad er forholdet for et menneske? Lad os tage et oplyst menneske,
who can perform any action he likes without creating an impression?
som kan udføre hvilken som helst handling uden at få indtryk.
In other words, he is not adding any more impressions to the mind.
Med andre ord, han får jo ikke nye indtryk til sindet.
And yet, such enlightened people are the most difficult to judge.
Og sådan nogle mennesker er netop de mest vanskelige at dømme.
We can hardly judge our wives or husbands or children or friends.
Vi kan dårligt nok dømme vores kone, eller vores mand, eller vores børn.
Who is there to be able to judge gurus or enlightened people?
Hvem er i stand til at dømme guruer eller oplyste mennesker?
Because they are so unconventional.
For de er uden konventioner.
They are never childish, but childlike.
De er aldrig barnagtige, men barnlige.
All their actions are prompted by innocence.
Alle deres handlinger kommer af uskyldighed.
They are against convention.
Og de er imod konventioner.
They're against man-made laws, but always in compliance with God-made laws.
De er mod menneskeskabte love, men altid i overensstemmelse med Gud.
That is the cause.
Men altid i overensstemmelse med guddommelige love.
And that is the cause of their innocence.
Og det er derfor, de er uskyldige.
Therefore, real enlightened people, you'll find them always very playful, like children.
Og det er derfor, I vil finde, at virkelig oplyste mennesker altid vil være meget glade for at lege, ligesom børn.
They would have the highest amount of intelligence.
De vil være yderst intelligente.
Intellectual geniuses and spiritual giants.
Intellektuelle giganter og genier og rent åndeligt set store.
But so childlike.
Men ligesom børn.
With children, they become like children.
Med børn bliver de ligesom børn.
With university professors, they become like professors.
Blandt professorer bliver de ligesom professorer.
With the loafer boy in the street, they'll become a loafer.
Loafer boy.
And loafer means one of these robbers, thieves that hang around on corners.
Blandt gadedrenge bliver de som gadedrenge.
Teddy boys in England, they call it.
Og blandt rockere som rockere.
Yeah. There was an enlightened man.
Der var en oplyst person.
And he went to jail 20 times.
Han var i fængsel 20 gange.
For committing very small petty offenses.
For at begå meget små forbrydelser.
Now the jailers that knew him well said, please, that place is not good for you, and you must not go every time to jail.
De elever, som kendte ham godt, sagde til ham, du skal ikke tage dig hen, det er ikke et godt sted for dig at være.
So the last time, the 20th time when he went to jail, he explained to his close jailers.
Så den 20. gang han tog til fængsel, så forklarede han til sine elever,
that I'm going to jail this time for stealing 2 slices of bread.
Den gang skal jeg i fængsel for at have stjålet 2 skiver brød.
Yeah, but I've done it on purpose.
Men jeg har gjort det med vilje.
And this very act of stealing has not affected me.
Og det at stjæle har ikke påvirket mig.
Because I'm beyond those actions.
For jeg er ud over de handlinger.
I took those 2 slices of bread and gave it away to little poor urchins.
Jeg tog de 2 skiver brød og gav til en, der behøvede dem.
But then why must you go and suffer in the jail?
Men hvorfor skal du så lide i fængslet?
So he explained the purpose.
Så forklarede han formålet.
He says, if I want to go to the jail just like that, they won't let me in.
Han sagde, hvis jeg bare kommer af mig selv for at komme i fængsel, så vil de ikke lade mig komme ind.
So I've got to do something.
Så jeg må gøre noget.
Which is against the law.
Som er forbudt i loven.
When I am in jail, this is what I do.
Når jeg er i fængsel, så gør jeg det her.
That all those prisoners there need spiritual teaching and meditation more than you people.
De fanger, som er der, de behøver åndelige energi og meditation meget mere end I andre.
So every time I go to jail, I teach them and I give them techniques and various spiritual practices so that they could also find that peace and they could find God.
Hver gang jeg går i fængsel, så underviser jeg dem og giver dem teknikker, så de også kunne finde Gud.
So am I not performing a service?
Så tjener jeg ikke.
Is my action not for the benefit of others?
Gavner mine handlinger ikke andre?
But the outsider that does not know will say, oh, what kind of guru is this? Every time we hear he's in jail.
Men for udenforstående, hvordan vil det ikke se ud? Vi hører ikke andet, end han er i fængsel.
So behind the action, the most important factor is motivation.
Så bag ved handlingen er motivationen den vigtige.
What is your motivation in performing a particular action?
Hvad er din motivation for at udføre en bestemt handling?
So, you would find with highly evolved people all kinds of accusations thrown at them.
Så man vil finde, at alle højt udviklede mennesker bliver meget anklaget.
And when it comes to accusations, they are normally, as a rule, misunderstandings.
Og hvad anklagerne angår, så er de normalt misforståelser,
Misrepresentations,
forvrængninger,
distortion of truth,
usande ting
and twisted truth.
og fordrejede sandheder.
You see. Now, the Bible tells you, judge ye not, that ye be judged.
Bibelen siger, døm ikke, for at du ikke skal blive dømt.
So I would ask, when it comes to action and motivation, who here, or 99.9% of the world, is qualified enough to be able to judge
Så
anyone?
hvad det angår handlinger, så vil jeg spørge, hvem her? 99,9% er ikke kvalificeret til at dømme andre.
And then we try and judge enlightened men.
Og så prøver vi ovenikøbet at dømme oplyste mennesker.
It is blasphemy.
Det er blasfemi.
It is treachery.
Det er forræderi.
It is being a Judas.
Det er at være en Judas.
To see how life works.
Se, hvordan livet går.
You find the greatest men in the world that suffered the world's greatest tortures.
Det er de største mennesker i verden, som led de største lidelser.
You take the story of Lord Rama,
For eksempel historien om Lord Rama,
who was an incarnation.
som var en inkarnation.
He was banished to the jungles for 14 years
Han blev fordrevet ud i junglen i 14 år
and suffered great miseries.
og led store lidelser.
This you can read in the Ramayana.
Det kan man læse om i Ramayana.
You take the life of Krishna,
I Krishnas liv også.
where he was always in between, he was always put in between the warring factions of the Kauravas and the Pandavas.
Han blev altid sat midt i krigene mellem Kuranierne og Panderne.
And made his life a total misery.
Og det gjorde hans liv meget ulykkeligt.
So this you can read in the Mahabharata.
Det kan man læse om i Mahabharata.
And if you read the Buddhist scriptures and study the life of Buddha,
Og man læser i de buddhistiske skrifter om Buddhas liv,
you will find that he was plagued by Mara and all his demons.
man læser om, hvordan han blev leget med af, what was her name?
Mara.
Mara og alle hans dæmoner.
And misery, misery, misery.
Det er en ren ulykke.
And I will tell you why all this happens in a moment.
Jeg fortæller jer om lidt, hvorfor alt det sker.
Now let us take the example of whom we know so much more, Jesus.
Lad os tage et andet eksempel, som vi kender mere til, nemlig Jesus.
One of the greatest incarnations in the world that lived to preach love, hope, charity.
En af de største inkarnationer, som har levet her på jorden og prædiket om kærlighed, håb og næstekærlighed.
And charity does not mean giving things.
Og næstekærlighed betyder ikke, at man bare giver alsmisser eller ting.
Charity means giving of the inside.
Det betyder at give ens indre.
In various forms, such as love.
På mange måder, som for eksempel som
That is
kærlighed.
also being charitable.
Det er også at være næstekærlig.
Yet the common quality amongst all these men has been the same.
Og alligevel har den gennemgående kvalitet hos de mennesker været den samme.
Love, charity, compassion.
Kærlighed, næstekærlighed, medfølelse.
Forgiveness.
Tilgivelse.
And yet in the life of Jesus, he was the most despised man.
Og alligevel var Jesus en af de mest foragtede mennesker.
And yet their actions were so great.
Og hans handlinger var så store.
But totally misunderstood.
Men helt misforstået.
The Romans thought he was a rebel.
Romerne troede, han var oprører.
The Sanhedrins thought he was destroying the temple or the Judaistic faith.
Nogle troede, at han ødelagde templerne eller den judæiske tro.
He was despised by all. The Pharisees, the Sadducees.
Foragtede alle farisæerne og sadduceerne.
The Romans and even his own people, the Jews.
Romerne og også hans egne, jøderne.
Everyone despised him.
Alle foragtede ham.
And yet the man had so much. We are using these as examples to learn. And yet there was so much courage that when Pontius Pilate questioned him,
det her er eksempler, vi bruger for at lære, og da Pontius Pilatus udspurgte Jesus.
And Pontius Pilate told him that answer me because I can save you from being crucified.
Og Pontius Pilatus sagde, svar mig, for jeg kan frelse dig fra korsfæstelsen.
And what did Jesus answer?
Og hvad svarede Jesus?
Not a word.
Ikke et ord.
He remained silent.
Han forblev tavs.
So, the meaning of all this is this.
Det betyder,
that whenever a great force, a spiritual force, arises in this world,
når som helst en stor åndelig kraft opstår her på jorden,
you will always find an evil force arising at the same time.
vil man altid finde, at en negativ kraft rejser sig samtidig.
It is like a coin with two sides.
Det er som en mønt med to sider.
Always. Whenever a great force arises, an evil force will arise simultaneously, but it serves a great purpose.
Når som helst en god kraft rejser sig, rejser også en ond sig. Men det har et formål.
And the great purpose is this, that the greater the resistance, the greater the push.
Formålet er det, at jo større modstanden er, jo større kraft bliver der skubbet.
And it is of this great push that these great personages are immortal.
Og det er med denne store kraft, der skubbes, der gør, at de store personer er udødelige.
And we try to understand them.
Og vi prøver at forstå dem.
My friend over there, for example,
min ven derovre, for eksempel,
he is invited to dinner.
Han bliver inviteret ud at spise.
And with dinner he would have a glass of wine or a whiskey.
Og han vil drikke et glas vin eller et glas whisky.
Right. Occasionally.
Af og til.
Now you, that is the observer, have you the right to call him an alcoholic?
Og dig som ser på, har du ret til at kalde ham alkoholiker?
You see how people's minds work, how evil works.
Se hvordan menneskers sind arbejder, hvordan det onde arbejder.
My friend over there, who might be a psychologist,
min ven derovre, som måske er psykolog,
and a patient, a woman, comes to him in a totally hysterical state.
Som så får en patient, en kvinde, som er i en fuldstændig hysterisk tilstand.
So, in that state, the psychologist will not be able to communicate.
Og Psykologen vil så ikke være i stand til at kommunikere med hende i den tilstand.
So he gives her a hard slap
Så han giver hende en på kassen
to shock her.
for at vække hende.
And with that shock, she quietens down.
Og med det chok falder hun til ro.
But you that are passing outside and looking through the window,
Men dig, der går forbi udenfor, kigger ind ad vinduet,
will say, oh, that psychologist is such a violent man hitting a woman.
vil sige, den psykolog, han er en meget voldelig mand, han slår kvinder.
Now, what is important? The action or the motivation?
Hvad er vigtigt? Handling eller dens motivation?
So, if the motivation is correct,
Hvis motivationen er rigtig,
never mind how the world looks at it.
så er det lige meget, hvordan verden ser på det.
Never mind how the world saw Jesus at his time.
Så er det ligegyldigt, hvordan man så på Jesus på den tid.
For the church only came into being about 100 years later.
Kirken opstod først 100 år senere.
Never mind how the world saw Jesus' actions when he used to wine and dine with the Pharisees.
Så det er lige meget, hvordan de så på Jesus, når han spiste og drak med farisæerne
And used to visit the house of prostitutes.
og gik til bordeller.
What was the motivation?
Hvad var årsagen?
And one proof is this, that if his motivation was wrong, he would never be able to exert that power and that force
Hvis hans motivation var rigtig, ville han aldrig være i stand til at frembringe den kraft,
and which is still powerful and forceful even after 2000 years.
som stadigvæk virker og er kraftig 2000 år efter.
So it is because of purity.
Det er på grund af renhed.
Now, a realized man,
En oplyst person.
I have some sentences shorter, some longer, for the purpose of certain emphasis. Good. Now, him being a realized man,
Og det, han var et oplyst menneske,
he was beyond worldly laws.
så var han ud over de almindelige love.
And the same applied to the other great masters.
Og det gælder også andre store mestre.
They become a law unto themselves.
Det bliver en lov for sig selv.
They are not governed by convention.
De styres ikke af konventioner.
Because all conventions and all that we call moral laws
Og for alle konventioner og morallove
are made by man.
er skabt af mennesker.
And it is a good thing.
Det er en god ting.
Because these moral laws are to keep society in a stable condition.
Fordi disse morallove skal holde samfundet i en stabil tilstand.
For example, on the roads when you're driving a motor car,
For eksempel på vejen, når man kører i bil.
if there were no traffic lights
Hvis der ikke var trafiklys
or roundabouts
eller rundkørsler
or stop streets,
eller stopstriber,
a lot of accidents could happen
vil der ske mange ulykker.
because everyone is not a considerate person.
For det er ikke alle, der ser sig for.
He will not, because there is no stop sign, he will not stop.
Han vil ikke standse, hvis der ikke er noget stopskilt,
And he might bump his car into someone else and kill the other person.
og måske køre ind i en anden og dræbe ham.
So that is what morality is all about.
Så det er derfor, der er morallov.
To bring about a system in society.
For at skabe et system i samfundet.
And everyone is a good driver if there is a traffic policeman behind him.
Og alle kører godt, hvis der er en politimand lige bagved.
Then you're careful because the traffic policeman behind you can stop you and give you a ticket.
Så passer man på, fordi så er han bagved og kan stoppe.
And that is what moral laws are all about.
Det er det, moralloven er til.
But it has so little to do with purity.
Men det har meget lidt at gøre med renhed.
Purity is an action performed in total innocence,
Renhed er handlinger udført i total uskyldighed.
where there are no strings attached.
Og der ikke er nogen bånd i.
where there's no sense of self-gain.
Hvor der ikke er nogen sans om at få.
There's no sense of name or fame or wealth,
Hvor der ikke er nogen følelse
fortune.
hvor der ikke er nogen følelse af at vinde eller få eller navn og ry. Og
Yeah. No name, fame, fortune. Not important.
navn og penge og ry, det er ikke vigtigt.
Okay. But nevertheless, these teachers also needed a piece of bread to eat.
Men de læger skal ikke desto mindre også have noget at spise.
But that was a necessity,
Det er nødvendigt.
not the aim, where accumulation was the main purpose.
Ikke det at skrabe til sig.
You see. So, therefore, these masters have always been non-conventional.
Derfor har disse mestre altid været ukonventionelle.
I'll tell you another story of Mahavir.
Jeg vil fortælle en anden historie om Mahavir.
Mahavir is the founder of the Jain religion.
Mahavir er grundlæggeren af Jainismen, tror jeg. Jainisme-religionen.
You've heard of the Jain religion?
Hvad kalder det på dansk? Jainisme? Ja.
Jainism?
Jainisme på dansk. In Danish it's Jainisme. You have ism after.
Jainism. Yeah, it's got millions of followers.
Millionvis af udøvere.
Yet, Mahavir used to, for 12 years, used to go from village to village, and he never wore any clothes.
Mahavir gik i 12 år fra landsby til landsby, uden tøj på.
He did not wear any clothes at all.
Overhovedet ikke noget tøj.
So for 12 long years, he was chased from village to village to village.
Og i 12 lange år blev han bare jaget fra den ene landsby til den anden.
People thought he was an immoral man because he used to wear no clothes.
Folk troede, han var umoralsk person, fordi han ikke var påklædt.
People thought his teachings were no good.
De troede, hans undervisning kunne ikke være god.
People thought he was mad.
Jeg troede, han var tosset.
And yet, an entire very powerful religion was founded on his teachings.
Og alligevel blev en stor og meget kraftfuld religion skabt på hans lære.
Totally non-conventional.
Helt ukonventionelt.
Now, how to understand such a personage
Hvordan kan man forstå sådan en person,
who has become one with God?
som er blevet et med Gud?
We can't understand.
Det kan vi ikke forstå.
Because what instrument have you got to understand? Your mind?
For hvad kan du forstå med sindet?
For you can only try and understand or interpret with your mind.
Sind er det eneste, du kan bruge til at forstå eller fortolke med.
While the true guru functions in a dimension which is beyond the mind.
Mens den sande guru opererer i en anden dimension, som er ud over sindet.
He can be in the world yet not of the world.
Han kan være her i verden, men alligevel ikke være af den.
And being embodied, he still has to have his normal functions.
Og ved det, at han er legemliggjort, skal han stadigvæk have sine normale funktioner.
He's got to drink when he's thirsty, eat when he's hungry, go to the toilet.
Han skal spise og drikke og på toilettet.
Normal functions he has to carry on.
Og udføre sine normale funktioner.
But the difference is that he is not attached.
Forskellen er, at han ikke er bundet
In the world, but not of the world.
i verden, men ikke bundet af verden.
Which means non-attachment.
Det betyder ubundethed.
And where there is non-attachment, there is no motive.
Og hvor der er ubundethed, der er ikke nogen motivation.
Because selflessness also implies motivelessness.
For uselviskhed betyder også at være uden motivation.
Now, take me for example.
Tag mig som et eksempel.
I have been accused by Judases of many things.
Jeg er blevet beskyldt af judaser af mange ting.
But they are too afraid to approach me personally.
Men de er ikke afraid, så det mean? Men de er bange for at konfrontere med personen.
Bang.
Bang.
That's an Afrikaans word. Yeah, bang means afraid. Why not have courage of your convictions?
Hvorfor ikke have din overbevisningsmål?
Because with just one stare, I could burn them to pieces.
For med bare et blik kunne jeg brænde dem i stykker.
Yeah, I'm using that figuratively, not literally.
Det er et billede, det skal ikke forstås bogstaveligt.
Because, in other words, I would burn up the convictions.
Med andre ord, jeg vil brænde deres overbevisning væk.
It's a burnless burning because in the first place there are no convictions.
I didn't get the first part.
It is a burnless burning because in the first place they have no convictions.
Og det er en ildløs brand, for i virkeligheden er der ikke nogen overbevisning.
And having no convictions is to be irresponsible.
At være uden overbevisning er at være uansvarlig.
Nevertheless, the other example we could follow of that great Lord is, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do.